Hello, Nancy.
Hello, lovely Nat.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of the SAMP community series today. I know it's been a big week for you launching your own business on top of everything else you've got going on. So we really appreciate you making the time. Look, it's been a crazy year. I think we'll get the elephant out of the room straight away. How are you?
Look, firstly, thank you for having me. I actually feel very, very chuffed that you've asked me to be part of it. Look, it's just been chaotic, but I think for us, or for me personally, it's also brought a sense of calm. So I'm actually doing okay. I think, leading into the pandemic, I was traveling a lot for work and, I don't really take a break. And I think it's forced, I know for my family, just that opportunity to slow down a little bit. And I think, we've really tried to take that as the silver lining. And, that doesn't discount that every day brings a whole lot of new challenges, because it absolutely does, especially when you've got two little ones in the house and, managing a team of people and things like that. But just, really trying to focus on what's important right now, eat well, sleep well, get outside, fresh air, move. I think by doing that, we've managed to stay somewhat sane and okay.
I'm glad to hear that. I think it is important when, to focus on the positives, albeit they may be, small in some days, those,
Yes.
areas. But I think when you start focusing on the negative, that can be a bit of a, a vicious cycle. And, you're managing a team, which can be hard if you're negative. We also know that negativity breeds negativity. And that can be really tough when you are responsible for managing a team, as well as a team of two young children that you've also got.
Yes.
So I'm really glad you're looking and sounding okay throughout this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be over sooner rather than later. Look, speaking of your work, there's a bit to cover. You've had quite the career working for some of Australia's biggest brands. You started in events at St Kilda Football Club, moved into Telstra as their local area marketing specialist, and then you moved into auto, where I had the pleasure of working with you for many, many years across some exciting campaigns for Nissan, Infinity, and also Holden. And more recently, you're at Cricket Australia. So I thought we would start there. If you could just maybe give us a little bit of information about your role at cricket and I guess how COVID has affected the game in sport in general, and also the marketing strategy that you've had to have in terms of pivoting that.
Well, yes, it's. I think we've seen, the sporting codes have really been rocked. And, I've been at Cricket Australia now just over 12 months. So, I actually still think like I'm still fairly new and learning. And now we've been thrown into this environment, which it's been really interesting, because obviously cricket has an international nature to it. And so that almost adds another level of complexity. And, you just hear from everyone, it's like, we just need to get India here for the test series, and the amount of biosecurity measures and all of that goes into that is just extraordinary at the moment. I think, looking at it from a marketing campaign strategy point of view, it's actually very exhausting. I'm going to say I don't think I've ever used the words, be agile and we need to pivot more in my life. And you really have to pull up. And I think, some really good advice my director gave me was, I was going into a meeting with our colleagues in Queensland. He's like, Nancy, remember, like, you are very Melbourne focused. Like, you need to lift the Melbourne lens.
Absolutely.
And I think, as soon as he said that, it was like, yes, we're battling stage 4 restrictions, and we had to postpone a participation campaign in Victoria because kids can't play, yet they can in other areas, in other states. And I think even when you're looking at campaigns, a lot of the games, or, in some of the other states, they're having live spectators and it's live sport. Whereas again, in Victoria, we have to have fanless stadiums, at present. So I think for me, it's just really, every meeting I'm going into, really thinking about my internal audience as well as the external audience, and just being in a position that we know we're possibly going to have to change and pull those levers. So it's just, I think it's really being real. It's being open and honest with our partners, our agents, partners, media, just saying whatever we book, you're going to have to sort of be in the headspace that we may need to change it really, really quickly. And just trying to stay on top of it all and also just be there for your team. And you touched on that, it's really hard for everybody working from home in such a dynamic environment. So, yeah, it's definitely you need grit. I'll say I've had to dig deep on quite a few days.
It's a big first year for you. Way to be thrown in the deep end.
Yes, very much so. But learning a lot and actually loving it.
It's an interesting point you make about how, it is very easy to, just think what you're experiencing is what everyone else is experiencing. And I think, we've spoke about this many years across different categories where it's like, well, it's, we're not actually targeting you. So you need to get your head out of that mindset that, you're not the 60-year-old person that we're targeting. So, think as the consumer, not as yourself. And I think that's a very interesting point because I think throughout our career, we've probably experienced that quite a bit where you're dealing with someone that, isn't necessarily target audience, but will give you feedback, assuming that, sort of based on that they are. So it's a really interesting point. I think one that's good for everyone to consider moving forward in sort of their marketing challenges that they're going to be experiencing, no doubt now and from, for a while to come, we will be experiencing this and having to react accordingly, not just now, but I think for a while. So, look, I guess you've done auto, you've done sport, two very, traditionally male-dominated environments. How have you, experienced that, as a female? Do you feel you were treated differently in those environments?
Yeah, such a good question. And one I get a lot, actually. Look, I think, you don't notice it as much, I think, at the start of your career. And I think, I absolutely didn't. And it wasn't until I started to progress that I really started to notice it a lot more. And I think, in auto, a lot of people who move into the auto industry don't tend to leave. They love it. So especially, a lot of men, they move their way up through the ranks. And I think, sometimes the behaviours are so ingrained that they wouldn't even realise that they're coming across, I don't know, can we say chauvinistic or, like they just wouldn't even notice it. And I think there are times when it was extremely brazen and then there were times when it was subtle. And for me, the times when it was subtle was worse.
Right.
And, I think that doesn't take away that I had, wonderful years in the category. I actually loved working in auto. I think the brands were so good and, launching new product and the opportunity was there. But there was time you really had to dig deep. And I think, the voice of a woman was just not equal to a man, especially as I got more senior. And I think, there were times when I'd question myself and go, did that just happen? Or, am I thinking or imagining this? And then, when you step back and you just look at your exec team, you look at your leadership team and there are no women on it, or there might be one, I think it's very apparent that is the situation at present. And, I think it gives you thick skin, that's for sure. But I will say, moving into Cricket Australia, a lot of people said to me, it's going to be quite conservative and quite traditional. And to a hand on heart, it has been absolutely fabulous. And there's been nothing in the time that I've been there that I would say to me that there's been anything that I've questioned to not be fair. So,
yeah, which is great. Look, and I think as we know, sometimes it just takes one good leader to change the whole dynamic of a team. And it's refreshing to hear that, at Cricket Australia, there's some good leadership in there. And that's obviously reflected right the way through your team, which is excellent. Now I'll give you a little bit of an easier question for this one. Look, you've obviously got a lot going on. You've got your job at Cricket Australia, which is keeping you busy. You've got 2 young children, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet you have still found the time to launch your own business, Mister Mimmo, which I think is incredibly inspiring. There's a lot of negative news out there at the moment, and when you hear stories like yours, I think it's really uplifting and quite positive, and probably there's a lot of people that will hear this and maybe think that they can do that too. So Could you maybe just give me a little bit of information, background about Mister Mimmo? What made you decide to start it in the current situation that we're in?
Okay, so Mister Mimmo for me has probably been in train for a little while, but I think what this time in particular gave me was time. I actually felt like I was gifted time. And I think, I had Valentino, who this month is going to be 5, and the idea came to me not long after I had him, because I was out, I'd go shopping for him, and I'd see all these beautiful racks of the most gorgeous little girl clothes and accessories, and I'd be like, oh, excuse me, where are the boys' clothes? And it'd be like sad little rack in the corner, and it would have a big shark print, or it'd all be licensed. And it's not that I don't love Ninja Turtles, like I love that, but I think I just wanted something. When we had an event or something, it was always, I felt it was just such a stress, and the selection for boys wasn't there. It was very expensive. And so I was like, there is such a gap in this market. And I'd start asking people, and they're like, oh my God, yes, there's nothing for boys. I get my stuff from overseas or whatever. And I thought, wow, this is extraordinary. Like, why isn't there? And so that's what it was. Like, I just started to look into it a little bit more. And then, I had Allegra. And I've always worked full time. I haven't taken huge maternity leaves for no reason other than just, I guess, opportunity presenting. And so when I had this time, I was like, wow, I can actually give it the focus that it required, the dedication, and start to build on the momentum. And I think that's what's happened. And then before I knew it, I was ready to launch. And I feel a little bit like I've got butterflies in my tummy, but I'm so excited for everybody to see what I've been working on, and to touch and feel the product, because the quality is there, it's versatile, it's stylish, it's fun. And I just love seeing Valentino. He's like, Mama, can I wear that t-shirt? And I'm like, yes, let's bridge the gap between, your going out clothes and your everyday clothes, feel good.
Well, it's incredibly inspiring. I think it helps. I've seen, there's a few people that I know that have launched business over my career, and when it comes from a part of passion, where you genuinely are passionate, and you obviously experienced it yourself and saw that opportunity. I think, I've always said that if you love what you do, you're better at it. And I think that will show. It's on sale this week. So I highly recommend that everyone goes and checks that out, because I'm sure it will be an incredible success with you behind it.
Thank you.
Look, we've worked together, as I've mentioned, across many years, primarily Nissan and Holden, where we've worked on some fantastic campaigns together. What do you think has been your proudest moment in terms of the best campaign that you've done?
You know what? There's just been so many, and I started thinking of Australia's Next Top Model Survivor. I think definitely the partnerships, obviously, is your strength and forte, and I feel like that was a passion that we both loved. But I think probably the one that stood out for me was the Who Weekly one. Yeah. And, that was at the time, what I loved about that was, while it was an outward-facing campaign and we were launching Equinox and really wanting to talk to women and, in the SUV category, it was also very inward-facing at Holden, because at the time one of the brand pillars was around gender equality. And everybody just leaned in and was so excited. And obviously for me, that campaign did the full 360. So we started internally, we had these amazing women come and speak to us. There was the 4 categories. I think it was like lead, care, fight, I think inspire, I can't remember. Yeah. And from that we were able to make something really significant and have a lot of impact. And and at the time I remember too, because a lot of it was magazine led, and people were like, oh, magazines are dying. And I can hand on heart say, with all the campaigns that I have worked on and the millions of dollars that we had spent, this one was one of the more tighter budget, I guess, campaigns. Yet the amount of people I knew that reached out to me and said, oh my God, did you do this? And I was just like, we are hitting the target market. Like this is real, and people started to see Holden in a different light at that time. And I think that's what we wanted to do. That's what we set out to do. So I think, Nat, that has to be one of my favourite ones.
Look, it's probably one of mine too. The magazine thing's interesting because for me, I think we need to see beyond the platform and see it as a brand. So it wasn't necessarily aligning with Who magazine for me. It was aligning with Who as a brand, and that had the capability of access to talent. As we know, the editor was very, very involved in that campaign, and it spanned digital. We created content. We were, like you said, at head office. And I think for me, that is what I've really enjoyed working with you on over the years, is that it is very much a holistic campaign. And, you see, a lot of TV sponsorships these days, and it seems to me, sometimes it can be very structured in terms of, you could clearly see that they've just accepted a generic proposal. And, as we know, we're both so passionate about that, and it does kill me slightly inside when I see that it hasn't been used to the full advantage. Like, it should be taken right the way through the line. It shouldn't just be in the marketing team. We should be involving HR. How can we use the content or the talent to help get people, want to work for that company? Like, there's so many avenues that I think a media partnership can deliver beyond just what is the obvious for me.
Absolutely agree. And it's something I think people don't know. Like, they just think if they do a billboard in or out, and but I think I thought of you as well the other day, because we were talking internally. At the moment, obviously we have to wear masks, and a guy in my team, huge Survivor fan, and he wanted the Survivor, I can't think what it's called.
The bandana, yeah.
And I remember when, at Holden, we sponsored Survivor, and everybody got those bandanas, and I went looking for one to give to him. And again, I remember that just being so, everybody was so excited internally. And even if you weren't a Survivor fan, it was like, oh, now I actually need to tune in and watch this and see what it's all about. So I think for me, look, anything, sponsorship related that really leverages partners, that for me, it's just win-win. Yeah, they're my favourites.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, thank you so much for your time. It was a really uplifting and positive chat, which I think is sometimes rare these days, so I really appreciate it. I did just want to end, though, with one thing. What is the best piece of advice that you have ever been given?
There's a few. I think I'm going to give you two, because I'll give you one, and then I'll give you one.
Aren't you? Always.
The one I think is very Nancy, but I think the one really that is so important to right now is that slow down to speed up. And I think, at the moment, everybody's working from home. You can end up on this mouse wheel, and you just, but if you can, take a breath, go for a walk, just slow down, think about what you need to do, put it down, come back to it the next day. I think that has really, really helped me. And then the one which I think is just my favourite, and it is from J-Lo, and it are her lyrics. It's on my Instagram, but it's that you will always, you will live, you will love, you will dance again. And I think as well right now, that is, it is very important. So it doesn't matter how down you feel, you will dance again. And we will dance again together.
I love that. I cannot wait to dance with you again. That's a beautiful way to end the interview. Thank you so much. Stay safe, and good luck with the Mister Mimmo launch this week. I'm sure it will be an incredible success.
Thank you.
See you.